Consider the fact that our fine feathered friend wiped down this whole fucking apartment before he split. He do a good job? Up to your standards? Excellent job. I couldn't have done much better myself. We haven't found a partial print anywhere. Not even on any of those goddamn books. Maybe he reads with plastic gloves on, I offered. I think he might. I shit you not. Place was dusted by a pro, Alex. I was crouched near several stacks of the books now. I read the titles on several of the spines. Most of it was non-fiction from the last 5 years or so. True crime fan, I said. Lots and lots of kidnapping stories, Schweitzer said. He looked up and pointed. Right side of the bed, near the reading lamp. That's the kidnapping section. I walked over and looked at the volumes. Most of the books had been stolen from the library at Georgetown. I figured he must have had an ID to get into the stacks there. Was he a past student? Maybe a professor? Several computer printouts were taped to the bare wall over his private library on kidnapping. I started to read down the lists. Aldo Moro, kidnapped in Rome. 5 bodyguards killed during abduction. Moro's body found in a parked car. Jack Teich, released after payment of $750,000. J. Reginald Murphy, editor of the Atlanta Constitution, released after payment of $700,000. J. Paul Getty III, released in southern Italy after $2.8 million ransom paid. Mrs. Virginia Piper of Minneapolis, released after her husband paid $1 million. Victor E. Samuelson, released in Argentina after payment of $14.2 million ransom. I whistled as I spotted the amounts on his list. What was he going to ask for Maggie Rose Dunn and Michael Goldberg? It was a really small place, and there hadn't been much room for Senigi to wipe off fingerprints. Still, Schweitzer said he hadn't left anything. I wondered if Senigi could have been a cop. That was one way to plan a crime, and maybe improve your chances of getting away with it. Come here for a minute. Sampson was in the bathroom that was off to one side of the tiny studio. The walls were papered with photos from magazines, newspapers, record albums, book jackets. He'd left a final surprise for us. There were no fingerprints, but he had scrawled a message. Just over the mirror was a typeset headline. I want to be somebody. Up on the walls was an exhibition. I saw River Phoenix and Matt Dillon. There were photos from Helmut Newton books. I recognized Lennon's murderer Mark David Chapman and Axl Rose. Pete Rose was up on the wall too. And Neon Deion Sanders. Wayne Williams was there. And newspaper stories. The Happy Land Social Club fire in New York City. A New York Times story of the Lindbergh kidnapping. A story about the kidnapping of Samuel Bronfman, the Seagram's heir. And a story about the missing child, Eitan Pates. I thought about Senigi the kidnapper, all alone in his desolate apartment. He had carefully wiped every inch of space for fingerprints. The room itself was so small, so monkish. He was a reader, or at least liked to have books around. Then there was his photo gallery. What did it tell us? Leads, misdirections. I stood in front of the mirror that was over the sink and stared into it, as I knew he had many, many times. What was I supposed to see? What had Gary Senigi seen? This was his picture on the wall. The face in this mirror. I offered a theory to Sampson. It's the key picture here, the central one. He wants to be the star of all this. Sampson was leaning against a wall of photos and news clippings. Why no fingerprints, Dr. Freud? He must know we have his fingerprints on file somewhere. Makes me think he may have been wearing some kind of disguise at the school. Maybe he put on makeup right here before he went off to school. He could be a stage actor. I don't think we've seen his face yet. I think the boy has big plans. He definitely wants to be a star, Sampson said. I want to be somebody. Chapter 13. Maggie Rose Dunn had awoken from the strangest sleep of her life. Horrible and indescribable bad dreams. She felt as if everything around her were moving in slow motion. She was thirsty. She needed to pee awfully bad. "I'm too tired this morning, Mom. Please. I don't want to get up. Don't want to go to school today. Please, Mom. I don't feel so good. Honest, I really don't, Mommy." Maggie Rose opened her eyes. At least she thought she had opened her eyes, but she couldn't see anything. Nothing at all. "Mommy! Mommy! Mommy!" Maggie finally screamed and couldn't stop screaming. For an hour after that, at least that long, she floated in and out of consciousness. She felt weak all over. She floated like a leaf on the hugest river. The currents just took her wherever they wanted. She thought about her mom. Did she know Maggie was gone? Was she looking for her now? She had to be looking for her. Maybe someone took her arms and legs off. She couldn't feel them. It must have been long ago. It was black. She must be buried in the ground. She must be rotting and becoming a skeleton. Was that why she couldn't feel her arms and legs? Am I going to be like this forever? She couldn't stand that, and she was crying again. She was so confused, she couldn't think at all. Maggie Rose could open and close her eyes, though. At least she thought she could. But there was just no difference with her eyes open or closed. Everything was darkness. Either way. If she did it over and over, opened and closed her eyes real fast, she saw color. Now, inside the blackness, she saw streaks and tiers of color, mostly red and bright yellow. Maggie wondered if she might be strapped or tied down. Was that what they really did to you inside a casket? Did they strap you down? Why would they do that? To stop you from getting out of the ground? To keep your spirit under the earth forever and ever? Suddenly she remembered something. Mr. Senigi. A little of the fog that swirled around her cleared away for a second. Mr. Senigi had taken her out of school. When had it happened? Why? Where was Mr. Senigi now? And Michael? What had happened to Michael? They had left school together. She remembered that much. She moved then, and the most amazing thing happened. She discovered that she could roll herself over. That's what Maggie Rose did. She rolled over and was suddenly up against something. She could feel her whole body again. She still had a body to feel. She was absolutely certain she had her body and that she wasn't a skeleton. And Maggie screamed. She had rolled into someone or something. Someone else was there in the dark with her. Michael? It had to be Michael. Michael? Maggie's voice was so low it was barely a whisper. Michael? Is that you? She waited for an answer. Michael, she whispered louder. Michael, come on. Please talk to me. Whoever it was wouldn't answer. It was more terrifying than being alone. Michael, it's me. Don't be afraid. It's Maggie. Michael, please wake up. Oh, Michael, please. Please, Shrimpy. I was just kidding about your dopey school shoes. Come on, Michael. Talk to me, Shrimpy. It's Dweebo Dido. Chapter 14. The Dunn house was what local real estate mavens might call Lutchen-style Neo-Elizabethan. Neither Sampson nor I had seen too many of those in southeast D.C. Inside, the house had the serenity and diversity I guess might be common among the rich. There were a lot of expensive things. Art Deco plaques and Oriental screens, a French sundial, a Turkestan rug, what looked like a Chinese or Japanese altar table. I remembered something Picasso had once said, "Give me a museum and I'll fill it." There was a small bathroom off one of the formal sitting rooms. Chief of Detectives George Pittman grabbed me and pulled me in there minutes after I arrived. It was around 8 o'clock. Too early for this. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked me. "What are you up to, Cross?" The room was really cramped. No place for two good-sized grown-up men to be. It wasn't your average toilet, either. The floor was covered with a William Morris rug. A designer chair sat in one corner. "I thought I would get some coffee. Then I was going to sit in on the morning briefing," I said to Pittman. I wanted to get out of that bathroom so bad. "Don't fuck around with me." He started to raise his voice. "Do not fuck with me." "Oh, don't do that," I wanted to say to him. "Don't make a big awful scene in here." I thought about putting his head under water in the toilet bowl just to keep him quiet. "Lower your voice, or I'm leaving," I said. I try to act in a reasonable and considerate manner most of the time. It's one of my character flaws. "Don't tell me to lower my voice. Who the fuck told you to go home last night? You and Sampson. Who told you to go to the Senigi apartment this morning?" "Is that what this is all about? Is that why we're in here together now?" I asked. "You bet it is. I'm running this investigation. That means if you want to tie your shoe, you talk to me first." I grinned. I couldn't help it. "Where'd you get that line? Did Lou Gossett say that in An Officer and a Gentleman?" "You think this is a lot of fun and games, Cross?" "No, I don't. I don't think it's any fun. Now you keep the fuck out of my face or you won't have one," I warned him. I walked out of the bathroom. Chief of Detectives Pittman didn't follow me. Yes, I can be provoked. No, that little turd shouldn't fuck with me. At a little past 8, the hostage rescue team was finally gathered together in a large, exquisitely decorated sitting room. Right away I sensed something was wrong. Something was up for sure. Jessie Flanagan from the Secret Service had taken the floor. I remembered her from the morning before at the day school. She stood in front of a working fireplace. The mantel was strung with holly boughs, tiny white lights, and Christmas cards. Several non-traditional cards were obviously from friends of the Dunns in California. Photographs of decorated palm trees, of Santa's sleigh in the sky over Malibu. The Dunns had recently moved to Washington after Thomas Dunn took a job as director of the Red Cross. Jessie Flanagan looked more formal than she had at the school. She wore a loose gray skirt with a black turtleneck sweater and small gold earrings. She looked like a Washington lawyer, an attractive and very successful one. "Senigi contacted us at midnight last night. Then again around 1 o'clock. We didn't expect him to contact us so soon. None of us did." She started things off. "The initial phone call was made from the Arlington area. Senigi made it clear he had nothing to say about the children, except that both Maggie Dunn and Michael Goldberg are doing well. What else would he say? He wouldn't allow us to speak to either of the children, so we don't know that for sure. He sounded lucid and very much in control." "Has the voice tape been analyzed yet?" Pittman asked from his seat near the front. If Sampson and I had to be on the outside looking in, it was good to know Pittman was right there with us. Apparently nobody was talking to him either. "It's being done," Flanagan answered the question politely. She gave it just about the attention it deserved, I thought, but she avoided any condescension. She was real good at keeping control. "How long was he actually on the line?" the justice lawyer Richard Galletta asked next. "Not very long, unfortunately. 34 seconds to be exact." Flanagan answered him with the same efficient courtesy. Cool, but pleasant enough. Smart. I studied her. She was obviously comfortable being up in front of people. I'd heard that she'd gotten credit for some strong moves at service in the past few years, which meant that she took a lot of credit. "He was long gone when we got to the payphone in Arlington. We couldn't get that lucky so soon," she said. She offered the hint of a smile, and I noticed that several of the men in the room smiled back at her. "Why do you think he made the call?" the U.S. Marshal asked from the back of the room.